All right, welcome. Let's get this going. I feel like the service is a little spotty. Can everyone see me okay? I feel like the service is a little spotty right now, unless it's just me. Let's see. All right. Can everyone see me just fine? Or is the service a little spotty? Guess I'm fine. Oh, my audio. That's why no one could hear me. All right. Can everyone hear me and see me just fine? It seems like the service is a little spotty. My head hurts. All right, cool. Let's give it a second. Let everyone get in. Oh, cool. All right, great. Thank you. Just needed one person to let me know. Looks like we have a bit of a packed house today, which is totally cool. All right, so today's not going to be that long of a day. In fact, we're going to start from scratch, which is great because we have a lot of new people joining us today. But also, so what's really great about RHINO Wealth is that it's a constant research platform, right? So it's a constant educational platform. It is not a platform where I come out before the market opens or after the market opens and opine on what happens, right? So if the market goes up big, it's very easy to come up with a narrative after the market closes to go ahead and describe why the market went up. It's actually even easier to then go ahead and allow yourself to sound smarter than the average person, or at least a lot smarter than you actually are, by simply saying, well, this was so obvious that this happened before. Can't believe you didn't see it. This is why it happened. This is why you should follow me. I've always felt some type of way about those people because it's completely dishonest. If the market goes up a lot, it's very easy to say, yeah, it went up because of this, and I can't believe you didn't see it. We saw it. You should stick with us. If the market went down, oh my God, today was a horrible day, but for only those people that did not see that this was building up, and this had to have happened. And if you were like us, you would have went ahead and got protection or made money accordingly. This is why you should follow us, right? So that's the easy part. Oh, Ralph, thank you. The difficult part is actually being in it. The difficult part is actually go ahead and sharing exactly what you're doing the moment that you do it. The difficult part is to be talking to people while the market's actually moving every single Monday. And for those that have been with us for quite some time, you know that we've also done this every single day. The only reason it's every single Monday is because RHINO is growing. It's growing. I mean, we're building a search engine, right? So our days, the time is quite valuable and limited. But we're never, ever going to leave anyone behind. So this is the compromise we made, and everyone seems happy, as well as we send out the emails every single morning. Now, the reason I'm sharing all this with you ahead of time is because we went ahead and took our losses on our Eli Lilly possession today. And it was quite ugly. We took a 62% loss. Now, that's never fun. And of course, if you go through our ledger, you'll see that's only the 6th loss in the last 32 trades. And in fact, if you go through our ledger, you'll see that the loss that we took is less than the gain we made on our immediate previous trade, right? So we made over 150% on McDonald's, I think. So to lose 62% is really not a good feeling. It's just not, especially since it's my personal account, right? So I share it with everyone and show everyone what I'm doing simply as an education and research. This is how somebody does it who spent X amount of years learning it and managing money for uber high net worth and yada, 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 right? And even with the algorithms we built. So let's talk about that for a moment. So we built an algorithm that allows us, or at least we believed, would allow us to identify a stock that is exhausted to the top side, right? Like we've nailed it in terms of stocks that exhausted to the downside. I've never seen anything that's more than 100%. It just is great, which then goes ahead and says, well, maybe you should stick with that. But in an effort to constantly improve what we're able to offer, we want to be able to build one that identifies a stock from the top side and says this is exhausted going up. A couple of things. Because we've just built this, this is the testing portion. And of course, full disclosure, we said that before we ever got into the Eli Lilly position. In fact, we got into that Eli Lilly position understanding one of two outcomes. Either A, it was going to work out very well, and we'd have to then identify why it worked well, or B, it was not going to work out very well, and then we needed to identify what mistake we made and then retinker it, right? No, I'm so dizzy today. Give me 1 second. So I took Claritin today for the first time ever. I don't think Claritin does this, but who knows, right? That's the only thing that's changed in my day. That being said, okay, so what went wrong with Eli Lilly? So we can do a couple of different autopsies, right? Like we have to do an autopsy on what went wrong because the money you lose, and I'm speaking in general, I'm not talking to any one person, but let's talk about myself. The money I lost is only lost if I did not learn something. If I lost it and have no idea why I lost it, then it's truly lost because I'm completely susceptible to making that same mistake again. If I make the same mistake again, what was the point? Just stop, right? But if I'm able to identify what went wrong or where I was wrong or how I could be better, well, then, like we always said, the market is a very, very expensive tuition. But to that point, the fact that we have an algorithm that nails it on the downside and pops it back up, that nails a stock that's ready to be bought, that's worth the price of admission, right? If I just did that, I would only win, which is fine. But I want to be able to win on the other side as well. Maybe I'm greedy, or maybe I want it all. So that's what I want to do. So when I take a look at Eli Lilly, a couple of things jump out. One, it's a pharmaceutical company. Being a pharmaceutical company, do they play by different rules, right? So a pharmaceutical company, by the definition of what it does as a business model, it produces drugs, and those drugs make billions of dollars. Okay, that's very, very simple. In producing those drugs, some are winners, some are losers. In producing those winners or losers, there is research and testing and phases that go along with it. Meaning, when a new concept for a drug goes to a phase 1 study, the future is infinite. This new drug, we made it for this reason. We don't know if it's going to work or not, but we're going to test it. And if we test it and it works, it's going to revolutionize and solve and heal, blah, blah, blah. Now, it may never do any of that. And for the most part, it never will, right? Like if you make a cancer drug, well, the cancer market is $1 trillion. And if this drug goes ahead and gets phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, we're going to be competing in that market. How do you value that company? Well, they have a drug that might go ahead and compete that really big market. And if it goes in that market, it can make a whole bunch of money. So I don't know, but like, I know I don't want to sell it. The point being, by the very nature of a pharmaceutical company, it does not play by the average rules. It can just go up forever, or it could just go down forever. The exhaustion is it's not objective. It's actually quite subjective because the exhaustion is always dependent on the analyst department of that major firm or bank or pension fund or hedge fund that believes their estimations of what that drug can do if this happens. So when we went ahead and took a short position on Eli Lilly, we had seen a 20, right? A 20 on the top side. Now, our first red flag was it did not end the day as a 20, but we already had gotten into it. The second red flag that we realized was we looked for it to be 20 on the top side, crossing over the dotted stochastic line on the top. What we had mistaken was when it crossed over the line that it made, not the stochastic line. And we're going to show all this, right? So just simply stay with me, and then I'm going to show it how it actually happens, right? Well, that's a different question, and I don't have the answer to that. Because what our focus is in trading near term. We never did the work to understand if it's viable long term. That being said, we did do the work and say Twitter was viable long-term, and it has a really nice pop today, right? So, Deborah, I just don't know the answer to that question. So 2 things. One, we realized Eli Lilly as definition, and what we learned is by definition of being a pharmaceutical company, it doesn't actually play by the rules. It plays by some fantastical set of rules that lives in fairyland where, oh my God, this drug could be this, could be this, could be this. I want to own it. I don't know how to do anything about that, right? And what the algorithm is supposed to go ahead and capture is volume and all of the things that go into the charting for that. But to go ahead and say that pharmaceuticals and commodities are traded identically, well, obviously that's false, right? Like we know that because it's such an absurd statement. But the point of that is then theoretically they should have a different algorithm components to it. So we know we need to work on that. Okay, which means we just have to back test every pharmaceutical company for the entire history of the market, find out what norms, probabilities, volatilities, and trend changes over 21, 7, and 14-day simple moving average and dynamic moving average looks like. I purposely did that to show you that these things are made with a lot of thought. Okay, so I still need to do that. Or how about we just don't do pharmaceuticals, right? Secondly, this is a really, really silly error, because that line that it went over, when it crossed over, I was so excited and so confirmation biased to be like, oh, it crossed over, that I was completely blinded. And that sounds silly because there was 2 lines. There was a line that it made, and there was a line that we actually identified as the line it needs to cross over. We were so squinting our eyes looking for it to be the right thing that we looked at it for crossing the wrong line. That's a problem. What else did we do wrong? Last week, we said, if it's stubbornly over 290 by the end of the week, we're going to sell it. We didn't. In fact, we held it till today and lost some more %. Friday, April Fool's Day, the stock went down to 284. At that point, our account was actually up. And instead of just saying, hey, listen, a lot of things happened, because all the things I just shared with you, I've obviously diagnosed as the week went on. But because it went ahead and showed me that, I said, I'm going to leave it. I completely, in a most undisciplined fashion, forgot every reason I was wrong and decided that the market's telling me I was right, which makes no sense because I know I was wrong. But what the market did was allow me to hope that I could be bailed out. And that's a commentary to being so public with this, which also puts added pressure on me, but also changes the calculus of what I do at times because I want to be seen as right. Now, that's not an ego that I'll take to the death, right? Like I'll take a loss and I'll sell it. I did, Ravi, and it is posted in the ledger. This is me just talking about it now. We got out at 210, which actually ended up being the high point of the day. So that was pretty cool. And we took a 62.5% loss. So now we're just simply diagnosing what went wrong because we need to know how not to do that going forward. So, and then also by this morning, how many days were left in that option position? Today's April 4th. That option position expires April 22nd. That's 18 days from today. That's less than 3 weeks. What do we always say? We're not going to hold options for the last month. It's just not something we're going to do because we can't go ahead and properly handicap what each day equals because each day is so much time value that's being taken away that if a stock goes up during these days and we're betting on it to go lower, we have a serious problem. So those 3 things right off the bat are things that we identify as we could have done better. Now, the reason that we share this so publicly is not to go ahead and say, oh my God, we have so much egg on our face, we're so silly. No, that's how losers think, right? If you're a loser, you can tell you're a loser because every time you make a mistake, you run and hide and pretend it never happened, which means you're completely susceptible to making that mistake over and over and over again. Hence, always losing. And by always losing, you're a loser. So I'm not talking harshly. I'm actually just playing semantics with word definitions to accurately portray what I'm talking about. And I don't believe I am a loser. So I will always find a mistake I made. I will always vouch for it. And actually, this is where this platform helps me. Because I'm so accountable to everyone in terms of being so public, I have a higher goal, a higher calling, in the sense of if I'm sharing education, I'm teaching, I don't want to teach bad habits. Therefore, that motivation forces me to actually, oh, thank you. So that motivation forces me to go ahead and do the right thing. Because it's not, you can have bad habits, right? So every time you ever see a person that's doing some type of, I don't know, marketing for stock market programs and we're the best, we're the best, we're the best. Yeah, when things are going right, they're the best. When things are going wrong, you can never find them again, ever. And what happens? You lose all your money, they lost all your money, and you say, I swear I'm never going to get into it again. Now, what happens with us? Now, it's not, so two things could be true, and I'm going to say them to you. It's not, what's the word? It's not nothing, which isn't the word, but it gets my point. It's not nothing that McDonald's was up 150%. It's not nothing that Eli Lilly got out 62%. And being down 62%, Eli Lilly is not justified because we were up 150% on the trade before it. But because we were up 150% on the trade before it, we are able to say this is the game. So that does not justify losing it. It does not make it better, it does not make it feel better. But that's the way the game is played. You win some, you lose some. The goal is to win many more than you lose. But and we've said this from day one, if you believe you're never going to lose money, get out right now. This isn't for you. The goal is to constantly increase the percentage and the probability that you're going to make money. So we're going to go ahead and do a autopsy on the stock chart. I don't know where it is, right? We're going to take a look at it. We're going to take a look at the new super duper list, see if there's anything there. And we are not doing a single thing today because here's the other part. When you lose money, your first inclination is, I want to make it back, which means you're thinking emotionally and not logically. So when you lose money, I would say 2 days. At this point in my career, I could take 1 day. And I say that not because do as I say, not as I do, but I've been doing this for 20 years. So I have a certain, and as you can see right here, right? A certain emotional discipline. So I can come back to this tomorrow with a fresh mind and say, hey, let's go ahead and do it. For somebody that say hasn't done it professionally or hasn't done it for at least 10 years, I would say take 2 days. That does not mean don't watch the market. That does not mean see what's going on. It just means take a step back, recalculate, rebalance, redeploy, right? Okay. So let's see where we are today. What a group today. I love this. Okay. Hey, Cookie Monster's in the house. And Cookie Monster knows who she is, who also became Cake Monster over the weekend. And, well, it's someone that's near and dear to my heart, and she's in this group today. Cool. All right, so let's see what's going on. All right, so here's the market for today. Let's make sure we know where we are. Okay, we don't need this up anymore. Well, we don't need it up. Okay. So the market is down 70. The S&P is up 9. The Nasdaq's up 136. The Dow's down 0.2%. The S&P's up 0.2%. And the Nasdaq's up 0.95%. Why is the Nasdaq up? Well, there's a lot of excitement there. So we have all talked about for the longest time Twitter. In fact, if you've been part of RHINO Wealth for any period of time, you would know that not once, but 2 times we've been in Twitter. We've made money both times, not as much as we'd like. Both times we were losing money in it first. And each time we said, we believe in this company because the data they have, they are the news industry. We don't understand how this company doesn't make money. We do not understand how some big rich person does not take a large stake in this company and right the ship. We said as a long-term hold, we knew no better long-term hold than Twitter. You can review the tapes, and for those that have been here, they know this. Now, we don't actually personally own Twitter because we then went ahead and started trading stocks, blah, 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 or trading options. What happened over the weekend? Elon Musk announced, and by the way, this is the richest man in the world, that he has a 9% passive stake in Twitter. Now, the word passive is really like false, misleading, because he's on Twitter. He talks his heart on Twitter. He constantly says he wants to create a social media platform that allows truth, that allows everyone to speak. It just so happens that it's happening during election season. And it just so happens, a lot of people say Twitter allows you to say whatever you want, which is not true. But everyone would say the only example that Twitter can show that they are not pro free speech is by banning the former president, Donald Trump. Elon Musk's factories in Texas. In fact, he moved from California to Texas. That's moving from a Democratic state to a Republican state. In fact, Elon Musk is worth $200 and something billion, and every Democratic policy, tax policy, is to go ahead and tax the uber rich. In fact, the billionaires tax bill is on the floor. So if you took politics out of it and simply said, what does each political party stand for? Conceptually, Democrats believe you tax the rich to fund the poor. Republicans believe you untax the rich and they will then grow and hire the poor. So Republicans think from the top down, trickle down, and Democrats think from the bottom up. Now, I'm not here to say which one's correct, but if you're the richest man in the world, it behooves you to say, I would rather a policy that took off regulation, that understood innovation, and got rid of tax policy that's going to hurt me. So economically, you could see that it makes sense for Elon Musk to move from a Democratic to a Republican state. And you would say that it does make sense that Elon Musk, in the guise of free speech, would go ahead and create a policy that allowed former President Donald Trump to come back, in which case he can then go ahead and create a sideshow and get all of his candidates elected for the midterms, which then goes ahead and squashes that billionaire tax bill, right? Like we see this happening. And Donald Trump does remember his friends, right? So I'm just making this all up, right? But I can see things happening. And if Donald Trump is very loyal to people that helped him and very, and you could say loyal to a fault. I would think some people out there is like, yeah, well, he's a felon, he's a scam artist. He pardoned these people just because they did him a favor. Yeah, you could say all that. I'm not disagreeing. But the truth remains, if you do him a favor, he will commit crime to do you a favor right back, right? So if that's the person you are doing a favor for, it stands to reason that that person can probably repay you pretty well. So we could kind of see the things lining up here. And if you don't own Twitter yet, I would not recommend, that's a bad word. I would understand the notion to say, I know it's up 20% today, but I see it going much higher. And I do believe that, right? So even though it's up 20%, we still think Twitter is a good purchase. And that's not to be confused that we're recommending it. It's just to say that we believe it. All right, so let's go ahead and look at something. Super duper list, right? And look at Twitter for the day. So if we go ahead and bring this down to a 1 minute bar, which means every one of these bars is only 1 minute. So usually they all are days. It started off really high, right? 49, whatever, came down. Look at this, bottomed around 47. Now it's making its way back up. So how many people saw the stock this morning and said, get me out, look how much money I made, cool. How many people are then saying, yeah, you know what? I want to get in for the next run. So if you take a look at the volume, these are all the people that were selling. And as it's going up, you can see the volumes moved up, right? Like as it was going down, you can see the volume kind of depleting, getting exhausted. But then look, once it hit a bottom, boom, everyone wants to start getting in. So I don't know, right? To me, it says you could own it. But that's a story for another day. Okay. And I just love Twitter because you can ask my wife. I'm in it in bed. I'm in it in the bathroom. I'm in it in when I'm working. Any second I have, I'm on Twitter. Okay, so let's take a look at the super duper list today. We added some stuff to make it accurate or updated, not accurate because it's always accurate. Actually, before we do that, let's take a look at Eli Lilly and what we did wrong. Okay. I feel like my son, he does that all the time when he's tired. I love that boy. Okay, anyway, so Eli Lilly was going up. Great, great, great. This is where it was 20. This is where we got into it. Now, as you can see, there's this trend line, and it broke it. And it stayed under, and it stayed under, and it stayed under. Okay. Now, the difficulty is everyone talks about a stock from their perspective. What do I mean by that? If you made money on a stock, your perspective is good, right? Yeah, I shorted it here and I got out here. Duh, it broke the line and there I made my money. Okay, well, I got in here and I got out here. Well, it broke the line, but never really crashed and regrouped. See how those two things are both accurate, but both completely diametric in terms of performance? So we got to be careful not to speak about a chart just because we're speaking about it from our point of view. Our point of view means nothing to the universe. But what did we do wrong? Okay, so we got in here. This was a 20. By the end of the day, it was no longer a 20. We said that we were not going to get anything unless it was a 20. So what should we have done? We should have just sold it right there. It no longer met our criteria. But we were undisciplined. We at that moment said, you know what, we'll compromise a little bit because we just made 150%. We're always great. Look how great we are. We're going to be perfect, not a worry. Okay. It went up the next day. What did we do? We bought more. It went up the next day. What did we do? We bought more. It went up the next day. We had no more to buy. Okay. Here it is. Now, where did it cross over? See how this crossed over on this line? Now, what am I talking about? This is the line that the stochastics indicator makes, right? Right here. This is the line, see it's sloping up, is the line that the stock made. We always said that we were going to look at something when it crossed over the stochastic line. When it crossed over this line, and look at it, it didn't even really cross, it just looked like it was crossing. We were like, okay, it's on, game time. And by the next day, we were correct. It did cross over that line. But was that the line that we were looking for? In fact, we were squinting our eyes and we only saw this. We did not even see the forest for the trees in front of us. We didn't even see this line anymore. We were looking at this. All right, it was a 20, but it's not really a 20 more, but it crossed over that line. Great, I'm in. Well, obviously, two things are wrong with that. One, it wasn't a 20 anymore. And two, it crossed over the wrong line. And even after seeing that, we still stayed in because we were able to justify it to ourselves. Oh, I don't want to just accept a 5-10% loss. Like, what the H? Okay. It went up, it went up, it went up. Look, it went up, but it's now sloping down. And we're like, okay, but it's going in the right direction. Okay. When did it actually cross this line? Here, right? So it started crossing this line. And in fact, it didn't even really cross it, but it touched it here. And this is how important that line is, right? So take a look at the high, 291. Take a look at the low the next day, 283. 8 straight points down. Just because it actually got to that line. So were we wrong for that line? No. In fact, if we would have just said, okay, we're not going to do anything until it looks like it's going to cross that line. Even still, do you hear me? No, it has to cross it. But even still, all right, it's going to touch that line tomorrow. We can see the slope. Let's do it today. Do you know from here to here, it more than doubled those options? So if we just did it correctly, now mind you, this isn't a 20, so we wouldn't have done it here. But if we just did that one part correctly, we would have made over 100% in less than 24 hours. Instead, we lost 62% over a week and a half, right? So that's not good. Now, why did we get out of it? For many reasons. It still didn't cross over. It's not a number anymore, and we have less than a month. So you know what? We take our losses and move on. Okay. So that is the diagnosis of Eli Lilly. Now let's see what we got going on here. So I think I have 2 red and greens. Let's put that up there. And where's the other one? I think it was Peak or PSA. Where the H was it? Maybe this one? Hold on, let me just find it first. Here it is. JB Hunt. Okay. All right, let's see which ones we're getting rid of. Look at that, 20 crossed over. Boom, boom, boom. And of course, this was in our emails, right? So we don't tell anyone what to buy, we give you the research. Anyone that actually used the research correctly, unlike us, who actually made the research because we're morons, and I know I'm speaking to adults, I can look in the chat. If someone had their kid, I'm sorry, I bleeped out the word, but I did want to go ahead and share the frustration when you make the rules and then you break your own rules. And by those that you taught the rules to, those that simply just did the rules correctly, which by the way, in our emails, we ranked this number 1. We ranked Eli Lilly number 2. We stayed in Eli Lilly, knowing that we believed this one was even better. The point of this is to show you that we are not infallible. There's only one person infallible. And we are going to make mistakes. This is a wake-up call that if you simply become complacent or lazy, you will lose money. Because A, we became complacent and lazy, and anyone that simply did what we did became complacent and lazy, and everyone lost money, right? So now this is no longer something of interest, but let's see, at 20 it was 34.95. Now it's 33.30. Oh, yeah, that's not really a lot. Yeah, it's almost a 1.75. Everyone here knows what a 1.75 looks like on an option the next day. So see you later. Eli Lilly, see you later. Well, okay. Oh, it got to a 23. And see, it kept going up. Did it ever cross over? This is the line. No, it didn't. So see you later. We would have never touched it. Did this ever get over the line and cross over? No. And in fact, it's still over the line and it's no longer this number. So see you later. Merck. All right, Ant, this is another 20. It didn't go down. Well, did it ever cross over? No. When this crosses over, this is going to get ugly. I understand that it's, and by the way, look at all these pharmaceutical companies. They just keep going up forever. So you know what? We just already learned. No more pharmaceutical companies. Get out of here. Another pharmaceutical company, get out of here. I don't even want to look at you. Japanese yen. Oh, remember when we talked about this being a 17 red and green? Well, that would have behooved us to buy it, but no longer there. Soybeans. So this we talked about getting a short position because on a weekly, it was looking quite bad. 17, and then last week we said it crossed over. Look, but actually still, look how silly we are. It crossed over the wrong line. We're looking for this line. Now, it happened to work here, but this is the line we're looking for. So again, this one worked by accident. We're going to leave it. We're going to leave it. Oh, no, we're not. Because that's actually for one person in particular, and that individual has his own list. Oh, daily. So this finally hit a 20. When it crosses over this, it'll likely get ugly. It crossed over that. It looks like it wants to come down, but it didn't do it right away. So here's another thing. Does it cross over days later? Because it kind of looks like that might be the case. And if that's the case, we need to recalculate and say when it crosses over this first line, maybe we touch it. and then put the rest on when it crosses the second line? I don't know. We have to look more into that because that kind of looks like how it's working. All right, daily XLY, 15, never got to the line. Okay. XLB, 14, never got to the line. Okay. What's this? 16, never got to the line. See you later. RCL, it's a 17. It's still doing its thing, so we'll leave it alone. See, look at this. Okay, so 14 crossed over. Now it's crossing over this line. Look at that move. 358 to 347. I see a chat. Oh, developed. This bottom indicator, though, I did not develop, so I will send it over to you. Well, I played with it a little bit, but I could send you over enough of it that you could have it. Okay. So, yeah, no, my pleasure. So 14, how could we have caught this? So I think this top line is quite important, but it's a precursor to this one. It's this one that really sets it apart. After, and of course, this we developed. So this is the step one, and then this is step two. So we're going to leave it just for research. We want to see what happens. This never got to the top line. See you later. This did get to the top line and broke it. So this would be kind of what we're looking for. All right. So 15 crossed down on this. Okay. So we would have got in. Well, we would wait for 20s, but say we were waiting for 15. 65, 64. Wow, this thing moves very slow. But yeah, that's, so maybe the way we do is a third when it crosses the top line, a third when it slopes to the bottom line, and a third when it breaks the bottom line. I think that might be the only conceivable way to do this. But you see how much we're learning? We're actually testing. This is what this looks like. If I was doing this by myself, I would actually be saying all this out loud. Just nobody would be answering me, except I'd answer me. No, I wouldn't. Yes, I would. I'm crazy. So this, we might just, no, get out of here. All right, 18. Okay, so this is actually something that's actionable. 18, cross over the top one, it's sloping to the bottom one. It's currently or it was 67.60. It's currently 66. I would surmise through my observation that this is going to move lower. Now, it's not a 20, so we're not going to touch it. But if we were, or if we were looking for 18s, I would say this is actionable. All right. 19, 1 day away from the 20, we'll leave that. We'll allow that to move up because it's the best one so far. This 16, okay, cross over the top line, now cross over the bottom line. 137 to 130. Okay, it's working. But I just, all right, so let's say we put a third on where it crossed. Okay, crossed there. And then when we could see it sloping down to the bottom line. Now this is a pretty strong angle, so we know it's going to hit that bottom line. Yeah, but when you say you know something, that's bad. How about we say the next third when it hits this line, when the outer band? Okay, so we would have done a third at 137. We would have done a third at 135, and we would be doing next third at 130. That works for me. So top dotted line, top solid line, top secondary dotted line. That would be our thirds. In that case, you would, if you're wrong, you know where you're wrong and you know how to get out. Okay, guys, I think we're cooking with some oil today. Where was I? All right, let's just play around. 14 crossed over here, sloped here, crossing here, but see, it's not really doing anything because there was only a 15. So that's where our discipline needs to come in. Ooh, this is sexy. All right, 22, just breaking the top line now. Okay, I know what we said before, but this would be the one. This looks like it has a long ways to go. I know I just said I'm not going to do anything today, and I'm not, because I can't talk about discipline and then not have discipline. But I know there are people who did not get into the last position, and those people might be looking for ideas. And I would submit that this is my best idea. Right? 18, we're not going to even look at it. 14, look at that, cross to cross, boom, boom, boom. Facebook, 14, we'll leave it, it's still doing its thing. 16, we'll leave it, it's doing its thing. 14, it's doing its thing. 12, it's doing its thing. I'm not going to keep saying that sentence. We'll move this up. And we're going to put this in order for the email tomorrow. This is done doing its thing. Do its thing. All right. So we have 2 that are red and green. This is 11 red and green. We don't touch 11s. Now this is 10 red and green. I'm not saying to touch it, but it did just come off a trend change bar. So this will be something of interest to look at. Twitter has been moving up since we've been talking. So all in all, remember when Facebook was 180, by the way? Who remembers that? Well, was it 180? Maybe I'm lying. Apparently it was 180, but it was 190.22. So I was off by 22 cents. 15, well, 14 red and green. Look at it, crossed the bottom line. Yeah, it went up, but then it went back down. And then it ran. So don't really know what to say about that, but we did say that Facebook is our favorite long-term hold. And we did come out and say during this time period, we do not know where things are going to go. In fact, full disclosure, my wife and I went ahead and created an UPMA account for our son, put a sizable amount of money in it, and put it in aggressive tech because of what we saw. And you could ask her, we made sure that it had Facebook in it, Amazon in it, Apple in it, NVIDIA in it. So basically our son's richer than us. But I own that kid's life for the next 18 years, so I'll tell you that. Okay, so that is our commentary for today. We submit to you that we're going to constantly do better. And I believe the best way to do better is A, cut your losses, B, diagnose your losses, C, share your thinking and share your thoughts, share what you did wrong, and come up with a way to be correct going forward in a very public fashion so that everyone sees, everyone could collaborate, everyone could voice opinion, everyone could offer advice, and everyone grows together. That being said, the money we lost in that context, knowing how much better I now am for the next one, it just seems like we paid a little tuition to learn something. And by little, I mean a lot. But everyone knows we can make it back in like a day. So it is what it is. So I love everyone. Much appreciated. Oh, cut your list. So, and put a sell order in for Twitter. Oh, well. Actually, before I do that, 2 things I just forgot. We have a crypto list and a down list. So let's take a look at what's going on, if anything. Crypto was a 17, crossed over, went down. Let's see if there's anything jumping out at us. Wow, Solano is a 21 and crossing over that first line. So I don't know how to short things in crypto world. I know if I own Solano, I would definitely sell it. So let me see, how do you do that? So I don't know, can you short things in crypto world? whatever the point is, if you own Solano, you might look at this as a reason to sell it in the near term, and then maybe come back to it. Same thing with Reef. 20 and crossing over the all-important line. If you own Reef, I would get out. I would. That's what I would do. But clearly, I'm not the smartest person because I just lost 62% in front of everyone. And a little bit more commentary on that 62%. As you would have read in our emails, we went ahead and sent most of our profit back to our personal account, which means we can send it right back to the account and we'll be fine. 20 crossed over that line, started coming down, sloping, looks like it's going to cross this line. What is this? Tron. Tron, if you own it, it looks like you might want to sell it. And speaking of, we've had this on our list. We've identified it the whole way up. So this would not be news to anyone. We'll put this on our list, 14 and above the line now. This one was a 20, crossed over that. Looks like it wants to continue crossing. Win, W-I-N. Looks like if you own it, you might want to sell it. Okay. And we have a down list. On a daily chart, natural gas looks like it wants to come down. So we'll put that on our super duper. What was this? Wheat looks like it might want to come up just by the red and greens, but it's not a number, so we're not touching it. That was the end we put out for our friend. Silver we identified, and it subsequently went lower, so we're not happy it went lower, but we're happy we got it right. The 10-year, we identified wanted to move up. It did. The 2-year, we identified it wanted to move up. It did. It moved up very strongly. Same with the 5-year, and I know that because look at these lines. So the most actionable thing we could see on this list is natural gas you might want to lighten up on or get on a short position on a weekly chart, and then we'll get going because I want to go ahead and show a more long-term view. Only because I know what's important to this individual, which we know is Don because it says Don. So cattle, 21, crossed over the next days, went down. Oh, it wasn't any one company. It was a mutual fund. So it's an UPMA account, Universal Trust to Minors Act. And it was a mutual fund that had like, I don't know, 1,000 companies in it. We didn't buy any particular one because he's 7 months old. So we want to be leveraged to the market. But in being leveraged to the market, we got the chance to identify which one we wanted, conservative, income, blah, blah, blah. We picked aggressive tech growth because of where we saw all the tech stocks. So I built like Tesla, Apple, Facebook, soybeans. This is the one we identified up here, and it's done well so far. Yeah, Christian's young enough that we could just get on the overall market and just kind of pick where in the market we want him. And we bought the boy some silver coins too. Okay, so that's what we have for today. So I want to thank everyone for your time. The email will be out, as always, tomorrow with all the levels in it. We're going to upload this right now into our group. And we wish everyone the most amazing day. RHINO meeting isn't going to be today, but actually something quite interesting. So I'm having a team meeting with all of our developers today from 12 to 2, and I'm going to record that. And I'm going to actually probably share that the rest of the week. So our RHINO host will moderate it. But it's going to go ahead and share exactly what's happening at every level, what the anticipation is, what the step-by-step is, because we're there. Now it's time to go. And I want everyone to actually see how these meetings go. So no one in our meeting, well, they're all going to know it's recorded, but I'm going to share with everyone after the meeting that I'm going to then share it with all of our RHINOs. So you'll see how a meeting at RHINO actually is conducted. And I think that's going to add the most value. And then the next week, we have some transition. RHINO host is going to take more of a RHINO concierge approach, because we're getting to the point that we want to go ahead and use her superpowers to create actual relationships with individuals and work with everyone on that basis, while also being available to everyone. So we made sure that everyone met her. We made sure that everyone sees that she's an SBA master. We made sure that everyone now is going to participate with her while she's moderating everything that we're doing going forward, meaning there is no better representative of RHINO than RHINO host, and there'd be no better way to offer her to the world than RHINO concierge. So things are moving. So I love everyone, and I will see everyone. I'll see everyone Wednesday on RHINO meeting, so be there. Otherwise, I'll see you next Monday. Bye, guys.